Imagine being born into a world where you're expected to rule the largest empire the world has ever known. Xerxes the Great, son of Darius, commander of massive armies and ruler of Persia. But what if I told you his life was more complex than any epic battlefield? This is the story of a king whose childhood, triumphs, and inner struggles shaped his legacy. Stay with us, because the ending will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about Xerxes. Xerxes was born into unimaginable privilege, but his early years weren't without pressure. He was the eldest son of Darius I, one of the greatest kings in Persian history. Growing up in the shadow of such a powerful figure meant his every move was watched, and his education was no small task. Trained in the ways of war, diplomacy, and governance, Xerxes wasn't just learning to be a king. He was being shaped to surpass his father. He was exposed to the vastness of the Achaemenid Empire from a young age, witnessing grand ceremonies, military parades, and the strategic discussions of court politics. But this life of luxury came with the expectation that he would continue and expand upon his father's work. Imagine growing up knowing that you're expected to lead millions, to conquer lands, and to uphold the legacy of an empire that stretched from Egypt to India. It's no wonder the pressure weighed heavily on Xerxes from an early age. When Darius the Great died in 486 BC, Xerxes took the throne. But even this wasn't without struggle. You see, Darius had many sons, and there was some contention about who should become king. Despite being the eldest, Xerxes wasn't the first choice in everyone's eyes. His half-brother, Artabazanes, also had a claim to the throne. Xerxes secured his position only after Darius named him his successor, likely because of his mother, Atossa, who was the daughter of Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Persian Empire. Xerxes was now king, but in his mind, the real test lay ahead. How could he ensure his rule would be remembered? How could he avoid the pitfalls his father faced, such as the humiliating defeat at Marathon, when the Greeks halted Persian expansion? Xerxes knew that his reign would be defined not just by his rule, but by avenging his father's losses. Once Xerxes turned his gaze toward Greece, he believed sheer numbers and strength would overwhelm the Greeks. The Battle of Thermopylae was supposed to be a decisive victory, but the Greeks, especially the Spartans, had something else in mind. When Xerxes encountered the Spartans, led by King Leonidas, he didn't rely solely on brute force. He tried to break their spirits first, offering Leonidas and his men wealth and power in exchange for their surrender. But Leonidas, in a now legendary moment, refused. "Come and take them," he said when asked to surrender his weapons. For the first time, Xerxes realized he wasn't just fighting soldiers. He was fighting a people whose resolve couldn't be bought. This psychological battle rattled him, more than he likely admitted at the time. Can you imagine the shock of seeing such unwavering defiance from a much smaller force? It wasn't supposed to be this hard. If the Spartans represented defiance, then the Immortals represented Xerxes' belief in the Persian Empire's invincibility. Hand-picked, elite soldiers, the Immortals were 10,000 strong, and whenever one fell, another immediately replaced him, keeping their numbers constant. Hence the name. Xerxes viewed them as the pinnacle of his military power. But even these elite warriors met their match at Thermopylae. In the narrow pass, the Spartans' superior tactics and resilience forced the Immortals into a bloody stalemate. Suddenly, Xerxes' belief in the invulnerability of his army began to crumble. What do you do when even your best can't bring down your enemy? In Persia, Xerxes was seen as a ruler divinely favored by Ahura Mazda, the god of Zoroastrianism. But after the disastrous defeat at the Battle of Salamis, his faith began to waver. The Greeks, with their smaller navy, outsmarted the Persians, dealing Xerxes a crushing blow that sent shockwaves through his confidence. How could the god of light and truth abandon him in his moment of greatest need? Some accounts suggest Xerxes began to question his faith, privately wondering if he had lost the favor of the divine. Was this why his campaigns in Greece were failing? Was it punishment for some unknown slight? This crisis of faith would haunt Xerxes, planting seeds of doubt that would grow into full-blown paranoia in the years to come. The treachery of Ephialtes, a hollow victory. When Xerxes needed a breakthrough at Thermopylae, fate offered him Ephialtes, a traitorous Greek who revealed a hidden mountain pass around the Spartan defenses. Xerxes seized the opportunity, sending his troops through the pass and flanking the Spartans. It was a tactical victory, but it wasn't earned through might. It was gained through betrayal. While the Spartans fought bravely to the end, they were ultimately surrounded and overwhelmed. Xerxes had won, but the victory came with a bitter aftertaste. The name Ephialtes would forever be linked with treachery, and Xerxes' victory at Thermopylae, though significant, would be overshadowed by the cost it took to achieve it. Could this hollow victory really satisfy his ambition to be remembered as a great king? Xerxes' father, Darius the Great, had cast a long shadow over Persia. He expanded the empire to its greatest extent and initiated monumental building projects like Persepolis. But he had also failed in Greece at the Battle of Marathon, leaving unfinished business. For Xerxes, the Greek campaign was as much about avenging his father's failure as it was about conquest. Imagine living with that kind of pressure, being expected not only to maintain but also to surpass your father's accomplishments. As Xerxes' Greek campaign faltered, it wasn't just the empire that was at risk. His personal legacy was too. Was he doomed to be remembered as the son who couldn't live up to his father's name? After his failed Greek campaign, Xerxes retreated back to Persia, a shadow of his former self. He became increasingly paranoid, withdrawing from public life and trusting fewer and fewer people. The king who once commanded armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands now found himself fighting an invisible enemy: betrayal within his own palace. In 465 BC, his reign came to a brutal end when he was assassinated by Artabanus, his chief bodyguard, along with other conspirators. The exact details of his assassination are still shrouded in mystery. But one thing is clear: Xerxes, who had once ruled the largest empire the world had seen, was brought down not by a rival king, but by those closest to him. It was a tragic end for a ruler who had once seemed unstoppable. Xerxes' life was filled with triumphs and tragedies, victories on the battlefield, and defeats within his own mind. From a childhood shaped by the weight of his father's legacy, to his ambitious campaigns in Greece, and his tragic decline into paranoia and isolation, Xerxes was a ruler who embodied the complexities of power. His story is more than just one of conquest. It's a lesson in the human cost of ambition, pride, and betrayal. If you found this look into Xerxes' life captivating, don't forget to subscribe and join us for more deep dives into the rulers who shaped history. The next story? It's one you definitely don't want to miss.